Thank you, Paulo. Thank you, Red Cloud. Great to be here. My name is Doug Allen. I'm the, as Paulo said, Vice President, Corporate Communication and Business Development. And in the brief time that I have to share with you, I'm going to run you through what I think is a truly exceptional emerging development opportunity. Standard cautionary language here. Pebble is a world-class resource. You may have heard of it, but I'll fix that if you have not. We have significantly advanced and de-risked the project, as I'll explain. We think there's a clear path to value, and you may hopefully conclude that that makes it a compelling investment opportunity. We think the time to invest is now. This is a site of the project area. It's about 850 feet above sea level, about 60 miles as the crow flies from Tidewater on Cook Inlet in southwest Alaska. It's about 200 miles southwest of Anchorage. It's not Arctic conditions, not that that would matter, because as you may know, the Red Dog mine operates in Arctic conditions, but there is no permafrost here. We get about a meter of precipitation, 70% in the form of snow, 30% in the form of rain. We have a positive water balance, so there's no issues with desalination, the likes of which you have in Peru or Chile. And you can see from the topography, it's very modest and manageable terrain. We've had mining executives out to site who have made the comment that the civil works will be more challenging than the mine to build. In the upper right, you can see the resource table. We've got more than 1,300 drill holes into the resource, and it is huge. 10.8 billion tons measured, indicated, and inferred. More than 80 billion pounds of copper, MI&I, 107 million ounces of gold, MI&I. We have a world-class silver mine with more than 514 million ounces of silver, and that's less than 2% of the product pie. Here it is expressed in a global scale. Pebble's the second largest undeveloped copper resource in the world. It's the 12th largest copper resource, but 10 of the other 11 are in production, and it's the second largest gold resource in the world. In addition to that, you can see, and I'll find out whether the pointer works, it does. So the polygon here is Pebble, 10.8 billion tons, but it's open in 3 directions. The 10.8 billion tons does not include our best drill hole, which was hole number 6348, which was lost in the Graben Fault, and that's to the east. There's a widely held view by any geologist worth his or her salt that's looked at it, that there's several billion tons to the east of the Graben Fault, because faulting occurred after mineralization millions of years ago. But as a practical matter, the debate around Pebble is never about the resource or the quality of the resource or the size of the resource. It's about, can you get a permit for the resource? And so that's where I'm going to spend the bulk of my time. But we do own all this acreage, or have mineral claimed all this acreage. And there's a slide in the appendix which I commend to you. The point of this slide is that copper porphyries around the world tend to occur in clusters. That's just the way Mother Nature deposited them geologically. And we believe that the land that we have title over, or at least have mineral claims over, will be the gift that keeps on giving. We have ore grade discovery holes elsewhere on the fairway, but our goal is to get a permit for what we already know about in terms of the resource. This is the project that we're in permitting with. We entered the permitting process in December of 2017. The process is going exceptionally well, and as I'll say to you or point out to you in a few slides, the Army Corps of Engineers is targeting the completion of the permitting process in about 6 months' time. So we, as I stand here today, we believe, about 6 months from getting a permit for a project that is globally significant, that the naysayers said would never get a permit, and I think we're in fact 6 months from doing so. So I think that's a tremendous opportunity for investors. The case that we're permitting is a 20-year case. It operates at 180,000 short tons a day, so this is not a small mine. This would be Canada's largest mine if it was in production in Canada. It harvests admittedly only 12% of what we know, being the 10.8 billion tons. We're only permitting 1.3 billion tons, but you have to walk before you run. I spent a lot of time reminding investors that Escondido, which is today the largest copper mine in the world, did not start life as the largest copper mine in the world. In 1988, when it was built, it started as a 35,000 ton a day concentrator. I know that because the guy that built it is on the Northern Dynasty Board of Directors. His name's Ken Pickering. And when Ken built Escondida for what was then Utah Copper, he was told to look after the 100-ton trucks. That was a classic mining nonsense. 3 years later, they expanded the concentrator at Escondida to 60,000 tons a day. They gave him 200-ton trucks, and they reiterated the same warning: look after the trucks. Mines, as you will all know, mines are by their nature large industrial complexes that will expand based on three things. Number one, most importantly, what can you get a permit for? Number two, what will the resource facilitate? And number three, what will the commodity price cycle allow you to finance? Pebble clearly will allow, from a resource point of view, expansion, but this permitting case is all about proving to Alaskans that a mine at Pebble can coexist with the fishery, that the 15-year albatross around our neck, that it will threaten the fishery, is not in fact true, and the Army Corps has opined on that and have concluded exactly that. The metal at 180,000 tons a day, the output is meaningful. 318 million pounds of copper a year, 360,000 ounces of gold a year, a lot of silver, and a lot of moly. Pro forma, it would be the third largest copper mine, representing almost 12% of U.S. copper supply, and it would be the fourth largest gold mine in America, representing some 6% of gold supply in America. So it's a strategic mine. We've spent almost $800 million on the project in various buckets of activities. I draw to your attention the environmental bucket in particular. We've probably spent $175 million on environmental science on Pebble. We have what is certainly the most comprehensive environmental baseline document in the history of the North American mining industry, perhaps the history of industrial activity. We know the region around the project extraordinarily well. This is the permitting case. As I say, it's about 200 miles southwest of Anchorage, and we de-risked it. One of the ways you ensure you can get a permit is you de-risk it by taking something modest and conservative into the permitting process in the first place. And we did that. We have a very conservative tailing structure in a world where everyone is concerned about a Mount Poly version 2 or a Broomhill version 2. These are real concerns that we had to address in the permitting process, and we have. We took cyanide out of the mix because for whatever reason, cyanide has a bad reputation in the environmental community. And so we have foregone about 12% of our gold recovery because we don't have a secondary gold recovery circuit. That's not necessarily gold lost. We hope it's gold deferred because we, at a subsequent date, will get a permit to add a secondary gold recovery circuit. The periodic tails are sequestered in a separate line facility, and so that will be a possibility as and when a permit can be procured. This is the cover page of the draft EIS. The draft EIS was released about a year ago. Its conclusions were impressive and unequivocal. The Army Corps of Engineers has concluded that Pebble will not harm the Bristol Bay fishery. This was a conclusion they reached unequivocally and repeatedly. There was no equivocation. There was not any commentary about mild harm or mild to moderate. There will be no harm to the Bristol Bay fishery, period, full stop. Pebble will not affect water resources of Bristol Bay, and most significantly, we think, Pebble will be an absolute game changer socioeconomically for a region where the employment rate is 30%, and most of that is seasonal. As I said to you a few minutes ago, we entered permitting in December 17 with the draft EIS a year ago. The public comment period closed on the 1st of July, and the Corps is on record. If there is a website dedicated to this EIS process, if any of you are having trouble sleeping, I commend this website to you. There are literally gigabytes of data on the EIS, and all of this is in the public domain. And the schedule that the Corps has published is they're targeting the final EIS in mid-2020. Our view is that means second half of June, and they're targeting the record of decision 30 to 60 days later. We think it'll be 45 to 60 days later. So we think by August we have a record of decision. So we have a permit to mine one of the world's truly great resources. These are our next goals. Once we get the record of decision, it'll be on to partnering and state permitting. And we think state permitting takes 2 to 3 years. You can move dirt during the permitting process, so you don't have to have all the permits in hand. So one of the early permits we'll get during the state permitting process, for example, will be the road permit, so we can get access to the site. We expect to get to FID sometime in a 22 timeframe, 3 to 4 years to construct, and we're permitting a 20-year mine. It's a game changer, as I say, socioeconomically for the region. The Lake and Penn Borough, which is the size of the state of Ohio, where the project resides, has 1,800 people living in 22 villages. Most of those villages are connected only by snow machine or by boat, or but more typically by airplane. It's an incredibly challenging region to live, but for the people that live there, it's what they call home and they want to stay. But I've got a picture on my phone of a half gallon of milk at the convenience store in Iliamna that costs $13.49. That's for a half gallon. I don't know why we call it a convenience store, because I find that terribly inconvenient, but as it is, the point of this is for the Lake and Penn Borough, the permitting case that we're in production, the severance taxes or the property taxes will represent about $20 million a year. Their current budget is $5 million a year. So Pebble in production offers them the prospect of a 400% increase in their annual tax take. Mining jobs, as you will all know, are very high-paying jobs. We offer the prospect of having almost 1,000 people employed during operations, 2,000 during construction. For the region, this is a game changer socioeconomically, and the Corps has opined on that very, very explicitly. You hear a lot when you talk about Pebble about the lack of Native support. We strongly disagree with that observation and claim, because it's simply not true. In 2018, we signed a land access agreement with the largest village corp in the region, Alaska Peninsula Corp, and last year in 2019, we signed a second land access agreement with another large village corp, Iliamna Natives Limited. And so we now have all of the land access agreements that we need for the access corridor that the Army Corps is going to opine on. I get a lot of questions about Rosemont, and a significant difference that I would draw to your attention, because it's a huge difference, is that Pebble is not on federal land. Pebble is on state land, and to develop the asset, we have all of the agreements we need. We are on state and private land, not on federal land. If we were on federal land, then there would be multiple ways the federal government could make our life challenging, particularly under the Mining Act of 1872, which has been a challenge for Hud Bay. We don't have a similar challenge. Alaska is a mining jurisdiction, as you all know. Mike Dunleavy's the governor. Amongst the material I've given to you is a letter that Mike's commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources sent to Tom Collier unsolicited. I point out unsolicited. It arrived in snail mail about 10 days ago. Ms. Figge is the commissioner of DNR. That's Alaska speak for the Minister of Mines and Energy. I commend the reading of that letter to you when you have a chance. The state is hugely supportive. Mike's 3 daughters have worked at the Red Dog mine. One of them currently works there. Mike's wife is a shareholder in Nana Corporation, who are partners with Teck on the Red Dog mine. He knows firsthand what mining jobs mean to a family and to a community, and he's very keen in a state where they depend on the oil and gas industry for 80% of their fiscal receipts. There's no income taxes in Alaska. There's no property taxes in Alaska. They're running a structural deficit, and he's keen to find ways to grow jobs and grow the economy, and he views the mining sector as a key plank in that policy platform. This is the Pebble team. It's built to get a permit. Tom Collier is the CEO of Pebble, a lawyer by training, a permit specialist by practice. Tom was Bill Clinton's chief operating officer of the Department of Interior, a lifelong Democrat who was appalled at what the Obama EPA was trying to do to us, joined us as CEO in February 2014, and has basically shepherded this project through the permitting process. James Fugue conducted the permitting process for the Donlin mine. We have a team purpose-built. This isn't the team that will build the mine, but it sure is the team that's going to get us a permit, which is what shareholders need to see. Interestingly, the molybdenum concentrate is rhenium rich. We know that from our metallurgical test work. The United States imports 82% of its rhenium needs. It's used as an alloying agent in jet engines, particularly military aircraft jet engines. We know the molybdenum concentrate is rhenium rich. This is a big deal for the Department of Defense. I don't need to show you this copper price chart. Copper's weak right now because of the concerns over coronavirus, but medium to long term, we think 80 billion pounds of copper is a strategic resource for the United States. Our value proposition, you will have your own views on valuation, but this slide is meant to show you that we recently were trading at 22/100ths of a cent per pound of copper in situ versus the developer group trading at a multiple of that. We were trading at about $3 an ounce per gold in situ versus the developer group trading at a multiple of that. This is our share price and where the share price would be if we were trading at the valuations that Newmont paid for Galore Creek, or what Mitsubishi paid for Quellaveco, or what Sumitomo paid for QB2. There's lots and lots of valuation upside in my view. Major shareholders, cash. Our last disclosed cash position was the September cash. Since then, we've obviously had burn, but we also raised $20 million in the fourth quarter, for $20 million US. Very supportive shareholder base. Sterling Global and Osvast here. This is the family office of Gord Flatt. Gord is the brother of Bruce Flatt, the CEO of Brookfield Property. Very capable management team, very capable board of directors. And with that, if I have any time left for a question or two. Sure. It is just the first few pages. Any other questions? Well, we have had the perfect storm in terms of permit timing, and I tried to convey that briefly in my answer in this earlier discussion. We got into permitting in December 17. We do expect to get the record of decision this summer. So from start to finish, it'll be about 2 years and 8 months from start to finish. That's a function of the fact that A, we've invested $800 million in the assets. So Tom Collier would tell you of the hundreds of permits he's involved in, he's never seen a project that was as ready for permitting as we were. But number two, Mr. Trump has made a big deal about the fact that he thinks red tape stifles job growth. And the Army Corps has heard that message loud and clear. And the one thing we are benefiting from under the Trump administration is there's no corners being cut. I can assure you of that. But there's also no allowance being given to the cooperating agencies like the Department of Interior or EPA or even the Corps themselves to let time goals slip. And so there's been a high level of accountability on the timing during the permitting process. So to your question of timing, we have a very, very high level of confidence that these remaining time goals are going to be met, because you probably might not have seen it, but what's called the preliminary final EIS was leaked to the media 2 weeks ago. It's only February. So if the Army Corps has already completed their final EIS to basically share it with the cooperating agencies, that means their ability to finish it in a June timeframe, which is we believe their goal, is, we think, very achievable. Thank you very much.